Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is James Shirk. I'm a senior policy analyst in labor economics at the Heritage Foundation. I'm here today to provide information and not to speak in favor or in opposition to any particular piece of legislation, and nothing I say here is an official position of the Heritage Foundation. President Reagan once remarked that the problem with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant, but that they know so much that isn't so. I'd like to tell you this morning why the two major arguments made against right to work are based on factual misperceptions.
Now, you are testifying for informational purposes, is that correct?
For informational purposes,
okay.
On a policy.
I'm sorry?
I'm testifying on the benefits of a right to work policy, but not asking you to vote for or against.
You know, I don't think that's going to work. Why don't you just try to stay with informational purposes only?
Certainly. The two major claims made about right to work, one of them that I'm sure you've all heard is that unions are required to represent non-members in collective bargaining. This is incorrect, or better yet, incomplete. Under the National Labor Relations Act, unions are authorized to act as an exclusive bargaining representative. What that means is that the union represents every single worker in the workplace. Even if an individual union member, or rather worker in the company represented by the union, would like to negotiate separate terms and conditions in employment, they can't. Everything has to go through with the union. When the unions act as an exclusive representative, everything you hear about free riders is the case. They have to represent everyone equally. They have to represent everyone impartially. They're not allowed to discriminate on any basis because everyone's required to be covered by the contract. However, the Supreme Court has ruled that the National Labor Relations Act permits unions to negotiate members-only contracts. This came up very early on in federal labor law. In 1938, shortly after Congress passed the NLRA, there was an electrical utility in which the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers organized 80% of the plant. And they negotiated a contract covering 80% of the members and leaving the other 20% to negotiate separately. The National Labor Relations Board came in and said, no, you can't do this. You've got to represent everyone. And the Supreme Court, in the case Consolidated Edison v. NLRB, ruled that the board was incorrect, that the federal law gives unions every right to disavow exclusive representative status and merely negotiate on behalf of those workers who are their members. Now, the fact of the matter is, unions almost never choose to do this, which is why you're probably going to hear a lot of union folks coming in and talking about...
I'm going to have to remind you again, and this is the last time I want to remind you, you're here for informational purposes only. So don't teeter on opposition or support.
Okay. Well, I will...
You're welcome. And that's just the way it's going to be. So don't make the mistake again there, or we'll have to call it the next witness, because you're here for informational purposes only. Now, if you want to be in opposition or support, you need to be in one of those two categories, but you're not going to straddle the fence in this committee.
I understood.
That, and going back and forth. Thank you very much.
Okay. To illustrate why unions would choose exclusive representative status, consider a seniority system. Under a seniority system, new hires are the first to get laid off. So someone who's been, say, in the plant for 15, 20 years has pretty good job security, because unless the entire plant goes under, other people are going to get laid off before them. If you have a members-only union, those new hires could choose to not be part of the seniority system. They could choose not to stand in line first to be laid off. The consequence of that would be, under a members-only contract, many of the provisions that are often present in exclusive representative contracts are simply very difficult for the union to put in place. But federal law gives unions the choice to negotiate as an exclusive representative or to negotiate as a members-only contract. And the Supreme Court has reiterated this since that initial decision. The second point I'd like to raise is the issue of what happens, the economic consequences of right to work. A very common point made about right to work is the argument that right to work laws affect wages. It's very well known that many of the states without right to work laws.
Mr. Sharp, that's it. You are testifying at that particular moment in that sentence as an opposition or as in support, and we're just not going to allow that to be happening in this committee. Are you not here for informational purposes?
I was under the impression that I could come here and present
I'll tell you what, I'm going
to
turn you back over to the chairman here. So
okay, my apologies. I was not aware that this was in any way considered appropriate, sir.
All right. Let me just clarify. I come in here a little late. You want to? Are you speaking in support? Do you have a problem doing support? I mean,
I
kind of where you're at. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the Heritage institutionally does not take positions for or against legislation. I would be analogous to a university professor coming in to present on his research on the effects of something. The University of Missouri might be very happy that one of their professors was being called on to testify, but the Missouri would not be institutionally taking a position for or against anything.
Okay.
And
Let me. How much more do you like on your testimony?
I mean, 1 or 2 minutes.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and finish up here and try to just stay on that on information.
All right.
I'm sorry, Senator Wall.
May I ask a question? I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. I was in another hearing.
James Shirk with the Heritage Foundation.
Mr. Shirk, I just would like to know why you can't testify for or against. Are you a not-for-profit?
Yeah, we're a C3.
Okay. I would just like to echo what Senator Leibel said. And to be clear, Senator Leibel and I are usually on totally opposite ends of the spectrum on these issues. Mm-hmm. And when you get into the wage category and you're stating that what you were about to state that he called you on, I would caution you to be very careful if you're here for informational purposes, because I have written proof of the different wages in different areas throughout the state of Missouri, and I'm sure you have all the data in the world too. So please, I would ask you to be respectful of our rules. Thank you.
All right, you can go ahead and finish up.
So it's very well known that states with lower cost of living have lower nominal wages, and states with higher cost of living have higher nominal wages. That doesn't mean that those states have, workers in those states have different purchasing powers. Now, the fact of the matter is that most of the states with right-to-work laws have below average cost of living. Most of the states without right-to-work laws have above average cost of living. And this is a very important factor to control for in evaluating differences in wages between states. There's been a report that's been put out by the Economic Policy Institute that finds that wages are 3% lower after controlling for cost of living in right-to-work states. What we did is we replicated that report, and we found that they made mistakes in how they controlled for cost of living. They used an older methodology. They wrote the report in 2011. They used a methodology that was around since 1999 or so. The literature has since moved on and found that there's some errors in that, and we used a more modern approach. We were able to replicate closely their results. When you correct for the errors in how they control for cost of living, we found that in the private sector there was no difference in wages between right-to-work and non-right-to-work states. In the government sector, that was not the case. In the government sector, there was about 3% lower wages in right-to-work state, but in the private sector, there was nothing statistically different. So I'd simply like to present you with the results of that research. I've been told that my written testimony has been submitted. I also have copies here for any of the members who did not receive it, and I'd be very happy to talk to anyone about the problems with the other research results.
All right, questions of the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.